The roar of 30,000 souls echoes through the vast expanse of the Pontiac Silverdome, a coliseum of dreams under the sweltering July sky of 1976. Spotlights pierce the haze like divine fingers, converging on a figure bathed in wit, immaculate, unyielding. Elvis Presley, the king, twists his hips in rhythmic fury during Burning Love. Then, a sound sharper than thunder, the fabric of his American Eagle jumpsuit splits wide open, from collar to belt, exposing the raw vulnerability beneath the legend. Gasps ripple through the crowd, but in that frozen instant, Elvis's eyes lock with the sea of faces, and a spark ignites triumph from the ashes of embarrassment. In the heart of America's bicentennial year, as fireworks of national pride lit the night skies, Elvis Presley stood at the precipice of his own personal revolution. It was July 4th, 1976, in Pontiac, Michigan. A date etched not just in the annals of history, but in the fragile tapestry of one man's soul. The Silverdome, that modern-day amphitheater of steel and spectacle, pulsed with the energy of 30,000 devotees, pilgrims, drawn from every corner of the land, their faces alight with the fervor of those who seek salvation in song. They had come not merely for entertainment, but for communion with the eternal flame that was Elvis. Yet beneath the glittering facade, Elvis wrestled with shadows that few could fathom. At 41, the weight of 2 decades in the unrelenting spotlight had carved deep lines into his spirit. The boy from Tupelo, who once shook the world with a single sway, now bore the burdens of excess, physical, emotional, and existential. His frame, once lithe and electric, had softened under the strains of a life lived in excess. The prescriptions that dulled the pain, the tours that blurred into an endless carousel of adoration and isolation. The American Eagle jumpsuit, a symbol of his resplendent return to the stage, had been hastily altered by tailors in Memphis to accommodate his changing form. What was meant to be armor against the world's gaze now threatened to betray him. Psychologically, Elvis teetered on the edge of reinvention. The 1970s had been a decade of reclamation for him. Triumphant Vegas residencies, sold-out arenas where he reclaimed the crown from imitators and doubters. But inwardly, doubt gnawed like an unrelenting tide. He questioned his relevance in a world evolving toward disco rhythms and punk rebellion. Was he still the revolutionary, or merely a relic wrapped in sequins? His relationships, frayed, Priscilla long gone, new companions flickering like stage light sand. His inner circle, the Memphis Mafia, whispered of his vulnerabilities. Yet, in the quiet moments before each show, Elvis would gaze into the mirror, adjusting his scarves, steeling himself with a mantra of resilience. This is what I do. This is who I am. As the band struck up the opening chords of the evening's repertoire, the air in the Silverdome grew thick with anticipation. The air conditioning, a silent sentinel against the summer heat, had faltered earlier that day, leaving the arena a sweltering cauldron. Sweat beaded on brows, but the crowd's enthusiasm burned hotter. Elvis emerged from the wings, his white jumpsuit gleaming under the lights, embroidered eagles soaring across his chest as if to proclaim his dominion. He moved with that inimitable grace, a blend of southern swagger and raw sensuality, drawing the audience into his orbit. Songs flowed like rivers of memory. C.C. Ryder, I Got a Woman, each note a bridge between past glories and present yearnings. In this cauldron of emotion, the incident loomed, unseen but inevitable, a tear in the fabric of fame itself. But oh, how Elvis would weave it into legend. If this tale of triumph over tribulation stirs your soul as it does mine, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more untold chapters of the King's hidden life, and share it with a fellow seeker of truth. For in revealing these moments, we honor the man behind the myth. The build-up to burning love was electric, a crescendo of the evening's passion. Elvis, sensing the crowd's hunger, poured his essence into every gesture, his voice a velvet thunder that commanded obedience. Little did he know, in that song of fiery desire, his own armor would shatter, revealing the beating heart beneath. And in that revelation, a deeper connection would forge, one that would echo through the ages, reminding us all of the fragility and ferocity of the human spirit as the Silverdome's lights dimmed momentarily. Casting elongated shadows across the throng, Elvis paused, his breath steadying like a warrior before battle. The audience, a vast mosaic of faces, young dreamers with stars in their eyes, weathered veterans clutching faded memorabilia, hung on his every movement. July 4th, 1976 was no ordinary night. It was a symphony of national rebirth, and Elvis, ever the patriot, embodied its spirit. His jumpsuit, that white beacon of American iconography, clung to him now with an almost prophetic weight, its seams whispering secrets of strain under the oppressive heat. Psychologically, Elvis navigated a labyrinth of self-doubt that evening. The bicentennial tour had been grueling, a whirlwind of 50 shows across the heartland, each demanding he summon the vigor of his youth. Insomnia plagued him, fueled by the cocktail of medications that propped up his faltering energy. Yet, in the solitude of his dressing room, he would confide to aides about the thrill of the stage, the one place where facades fell away, and pure, unadulterated connection reigned. "It's like flying," he once murmured, his voice laced with a vulnerability that belied his kingly stature. This night in Pontiac promised to be a pinnacle, a declaration of enduring vitality amid whispers of decline. The concert unfolded with mesmerizing precision, opening with the soulful strains of Also Sprach Zarathustra. The fanfare swelled, heralding his entrance like a god descending. Elvis strode forth, microphone in hand, his cape billowing dramatically before he cast it aside, a ritual of liberation. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," he drawled, his southern drawl wrapping around the words like warm honey. The setlist, a tapestry woven from his vast repertoire, began with C.C. Ryder, its bluesy lament setting a tone of introspective depth. He moved with deliberate sensuality, hips swaying in that timeless rhythm that had ignited revolutions, drawing cheers that vibrated through the concrete foundations. As the songs progressed, "I Got a Woman, Love Me," Elvis engaged the crowd with personal anecdotes, his charisma a magnetic force. He spoke of his roots, of the Delta soil that nurtured his voice, evoking a shared nostalgia that bridged generations. Yet beneath this poise, tension simmered. The broken air conditioning turned the arena into a steam bath, sweat cascading down his brow, soaking the jumpsuit's fabric. The garment, designed by Bill Bellew with intricate eagle motifs symbolizing freedom, had been modified mere days prior in Graceland's atelier. Elvis's recent weight fluctuations, a consequence of the tour's rigors and his indulgent lifestyle, had necessitated hasty adjustments, seams reinforced but not tested under such duress. Deeper still, Elvis grappled with the psychological toll of fame's double edge. Adoration was his elixir, yet it isolated him, a king in a glass castle. He yearned for authenticity, for moments unscripted by managers or expectations. In Pontiac, he sensed an opportunity for that raw exchange. During Trying to Get to You, his voice cracked with genuine emotion, eyes scanning the front rows where fans wept openly. It was here, in these exchanges, that he found solace, reminder that his music was not mere performance, but a lifeline to the lonely hearts he served. The band, led by the steadfast James Burton on guitar, maintained a tight rhythm, their loyalty to Elvis unspoken but profound. Backstage, the Memphis Mafia hovered, ever vigilant, their faces etched with concern for their leader's well-being. As the set built toward its fiery climax, Elvis wiped his forehead, the sweat a testament to his commitment. "You all feelin' the heat tonight," he quipped, his laughter genuine, masking the inner fire that drove him. The crowd responded with a thunderous affirmation, their energy fueling his own. Little by little, the evening ascended, each song a step closer to transcendence. Elvis, ever the showman, incorporated karate moves, sharp chops, and spins that thrilled the audience, his body an instrument of expression. But as the introduction to Burning Love echoed through the speakers, a subtle shift occurred. The heat intensified, the jumpsuit chafed against his skin, and in that moment of unbridled passion, fate intervened. The song's pulsating beat mirrored the pounding of his heart, a prelude to the rupture that would test his mettle and reveal the depths of his resilience. The opening riff of Burning Love sliced through the humid air like a clarion call, igniting the Silverdome into a frenzy of motion and sound. Elvis, positioned center stage, gripped the microphone stand with fervent intensity, his body coiling like a spring ready to unleash. The crowd surged forward, a human wave crashing against the barriers, their voices joining in a choral roar that drowned out the amplifiers. On this bicentennial eve, July 4th, 1976, the song penned by Dennis Lind and infused with raw, primal desires seemed tailor-made for the moment. An anthem of passion amid national celebration, Elvis poured himself into the performance with unyielding vigor. His voice, that golden timbre honed in sun-baked studios and smoke-filled clubs, rose above the din. "Lord Almighty, I feel my temperature rising, ... Each lyric was a confession, a release of the pent-up emotions that simmered within. Psychologically, this track represented more than melody. It was a mirror to his soul's turmoil. The Burning Love evoked not just romantic fire, but the inferno of his life's contradictions, aspiration clashing with isolation, youth fading into maturity. In the sweat-drenched confines of the jumpsuit, Elvis confronted his own vulnerabilities, the fabric a second skin that both protected and confined. As the verse gave way to the chorus, Elvis launched into his signature choreography. The hip swivel, that revolutionary motion that had scandalized the 1950s and captivated the world, now carried the weight of history. He twisted, thrust, and spun with explosive energy, the stage lights catching the gleam of sequins on his white American Eagle attire. The jumpsuit, with its bold eagle embroidery symbolizing unbridled freedom, strained against the onslaught. Altered hastily to fit his fuller frame, its seams reinforced with threads that whispered of compromise, began to protest. The arena's failed air conditioning exacerbated the ordeal. Rivulets of perspiration traced paths down his back, saturating the material, turning it into a slick, unforgiving sheath halfway through the song. As Elvis hit the bridge with a guttural, "It's coming closer, ... the inevitable occurred. In a powerful swivel, the fabric emitted a resounding ripetable over the music, captured by the microphone and broadcast to every corner of the Silverdome. The tear raced from the high collar downward, splitting the front panel clean to the belt line, exposing his bare chest to the gasping multitude. For a heartbeat, time suspended, the band faltered slightly. The crowd's cheers morphed into a collective intake of breath, a sea of wide eyes reflecting shock and concern. In that instant, Elvis's mind raced through a torrent of emotions. Vulnerability crashed over him like a wave. The king, stripped bare, not metaphorically but literally, before his adoring public. Memories flooded, the early days of ridicule, the army service that humbled him, the Hollywood years of typecasting. Was this the final unraveling, a symbol of his waning grip on stardom? Psychologically, it struck at the core of his identity. The jumpsuit was more than clothing, it was armor, a declaration of invincibility. Yet, in the depths of that shock, a spark of defiance ignited. Elvis had always thrived on adversity, turning scorn into supremacy. His eyes, sharp and assessing, scanned the audience, reading their stunned silence not as judgment, but as a canvas for redemption. The rip hung open, a jagged wound in the pristine white, but Elvis did not flinch. Instead, he straightened, arms spreading wide in a gesture of bold acceptance. The psychological pivot was instantaneous, a shift from potential humiliation to empowered narrative. The crowd, sensing his composure, began to stir, murmurs building into anticipation. This was no mere malfunction. It was a revelation, peeling back the layers to expose the human beneath the icon. As the music swelled back to life, Elvis's voice resumed, steadier than before, infusing the remaining lyrics with an authenticity born of crisis. The moment lingered, charged with unspoken drama, as the Silver Dome held its breath. What followed would transform mishap into myth, forging an unbreakable bond between performer and public, and etching this night into the chronicles of rock's most poignant triumphs. With the echoes of the rip still reverberating, Elvis stood poised amid the stunned hush, his exposed torso glistening under the relentless spotlights. The Silver Dome, moments ago a cauldron of jubilation, now pulsed with a different tension, collective empathy, raw and electric. July 4th, 1976, had transcended mere entertainment. It had become a theater of the soul, where one man's poise could redeem the unforeseen. Elvis's mind, a whirlwind of instinct and experience, seized the opportunity. In that vulnerable expanse, he saw not defeat, but a doorway to deeper connection. "Well, I guess that's what happens when you put your heart into a song," he declared, his voice booming through the speakers with a mix of wry humor and unshakable confidence. Arms flung wide, embracing the tear as if it were a badge of honor, Elvis elicited the first ripples of laughter from the front rows. The sound spread like wildfire, transforming gasps into guffaws, silence into solidarity. Psychologically, this quip was a masterstroke, a deflection of embarrassment through self-deprecation, a trait honed in the fires of his Southern upbringing. Elvis had long understood the power of vulnerability. It humanized him, bridging the chasm between idol and everyman. In exposing his flaw, he invited the audience to share in it, forging an intimacy that no scripted monologue could achieve. The crowd erupted, 30,000 voices cheering in a wave of affirmation that shook the rafters. Elvis, sensing the tide turn, leaned into the moment, exaggerating his poses to flaunt the rent fabric. Still maintaining the melody of burning love, he continued seamlessly, his hips resuming their sway with defiant flair. "It appears that my tailor and I are going to have words after this show." The audience roared anew, their applause a thunderous validation. In this exchange, Elvis navigated the psychological tightrope of performance, the fear of ridicule transmuted into shared joy, reminding him and them of music's redemptive power. As the song concluded, Elvis called for a towel, which a stagehand swiftly provided. Rather than concealing the mishap, he draped it dramatically over his shoulders, transforming it into an impromptu cape. "Ladies and gentlemen, in the spirit of the bicentennial, let's make this a night to remember," he proclaimed, his eyes twinkling with genuine mirth. The psychological relief was palpable. The incident, once a potential catastrophe, now infused him with adrenaline, sharpening his focus. He had always drawn strength from his fans, their energy, a mirror reflecting his own worth. Tonight, their cheers reaffirmed his place in their hearts, alleviating the gnawing doubts that plagued his private hours, transitioning into hound dog. Elvis maintained the momentum, his voice undiminished, perhaps even enriched by the authenticity of the moment. Backstage whispers from the crew signaled urgency. The jumpsuit needed mending, but Elvis waved them on, turning repair into spectacle. Safety pins and scarves appeared, wielded by aides under the lights, as he bantered with the crowd. "Behold, the birth of disaster chic," he announced, modeling the patched ensemble with theatrical flair. Laughter cascaded once more, the audience enraptured by his improvisation. Deeper within, this episode stirred profound introspection. Elvis reflected on his life's tapestry, the Elvis of Sun Records, wild and unbridled; the soldier, disciplined and humble; the superstar, burdened by expectation. The rip symbolized the cracks in his facade, yet his handling of it underscored his resilience, psychological armor forged in adversity. It reminded him that true kingship lay not in perfection, but in graceful recovery. As the repairs concluded, the jumpsuit reborn with asymmetrical flair, Elvis felt a surge of liberation. The crowd, now co-conspirators in this unfolding drama, chanted his name, their devotion a balm to his weary spirit. This pivot not only salvaged the evening, but elevated it, weaving vulnerability into victory. In the annals of his career, this night would stand as a testament to the man's indomitable will, a psychological triumph that echoed far beyond the Silverdome's walls. With the jumpsuit hastily mended, scarves artfully concealing the tear, safety pins glinting like stars in the fabric, Elvis pressed onward, the Silverdome alive with renewed fervor. Hound Dog thundered to its close, but the king had no intention of letting the evening falter. July 4th, 1976, now pulsed with an undercurrent of spontaneity, the mishap infusing every note with unscripted vitality. Elvis' towel, still draped like a victor's mantle, scanned the audience, his gaze connecting with individuals in the vast sea, a mother clutching her child's hand, a grizzled fan wiping tears of joy. In these exchanges, he found anchor, a psychological lifeline amid the chaos. "All right, Pontiac, you've seen me at my most exposed," he jested, eliciting peals of laughter that rolled like thunder. "But let's keep this fire burning. Who's ready for more?" The cheers were deafening, a symphony of support that swelled his resolve. Psychologically, this interaction was cathartic. The incident had stripped away pretense, allowing Elvis to perform from a place of raw honesty. He had always been attuned to crowd dynamics, reading their energy like a conductor senses an orchestra. Tonight, their empathy empowered him, transforming potential isolation into communal celebration. As he launched into "My Way," the Frank Sinatra standard he had made his own, his voice soared with newfound depth, each phrase laced with the emotion of survival. The concert extended, ballooning toward 3 hours, a testament to Elvis's generosity and the night's electric bond. He fielded song requests from the front rows, his banter weaving personal stories into the fabric of the performance. "This one's for the lady in the red dress who reminds me of home," he said, dedicating Heartbreak Hotel with a wink that sent ripples of delight through the arena. The heat persisted, sweat mingling with the scent of excitement. But Elvis thrived in it, his movements fluid despite the discomfort. The repaired jumpsuit, now a badge of improvisation, became a focal point. He occasionally tugged at the scarves, turning them into props for dramatic flourishes, deeper psychologically. This prolongation revealed Elvis's need for validation, a man who, despite his throne, craved affirmation to silence inner demons. The wardrobe failure had exposed physical frailty, but his command of the stage reaffirmed his emotional strength. He incorporated karate demonstrations, sharp kicks and blocks that showcased his discipline, drawing gasps and applause. "See, even when things fall apart, you gotta keep moving," he remarked, his words carrying layers of metaphor. The audience, enraptured, sang along to Suspicious Minds, their voices a chorus that enveloped him, easing the loneliness that tours often amplified backstage. The Memphis Mafia marveled at his adaptability. Their loyalty deepened by witnessing his grace under pressure. As Can't Help Falling in Love approached, Elvis slowed the pace, his tone turning introspective. The song, a perennial closer, now held added resonance, meditation on inevitability and surrender. He poured his soul into it, eyes closing as if in prayer, the crowd swaying in unified hush. In this vulnerability, psychological insight bloomed. Elvis confronted his mortality. The jumpsuits tear a microcosm of life's unpredictability, yet he emerged fortified. His connection with the fans, a reminder of his enduring impact. As the final notes faded, Elvis bowed deeply, the applause a torrent that seemed endless. He lingered, soaking it in, the repaired attire a symbol of resilience. This extended communion not only salvaged the show, but enriched it, leaving indelible imprints on all who witnessed. In the quiet aftermath, as confetti fell like bicentennial blessings, Elvis felt a profound gratitude, a psychological rebirth amid the roar. As the lights dimmed on the Pontiac Silverdome that fateful July 4, 1976, Elvis Presley exited the stage, not as a diminished figure, but as a colossus reborn. The echoes of 30,000 cheers lingered in the air, a lingering embrace that followed him into the wings. Back in the dressing room, amid the flurry of aides and the scent of liniment, Elvis collapsed into a chair, a quiet smile playing on his lips. The jumpsuit, now a tattered relic hanging limply, bore witness to the night's alchemy, from rupture to rapture. Psychologically, this denouement was a moment of profound reflection. The incident had pierced his armor, yet in mending it, he had fortified his spirit against the encroaching shadows of doubt. In the days that followed, whispers of the event spread like wildfire through fan circles and media outposts. Newspapers hailed it as the night the king bared his soul, capturing the essence of Elvis's quick-witted recovery. Interviews with attendees painted vivid portraits, a young woman who felt closer to him than ever, an elder fan declaring it the most human I've seen him. For Elvis, the aftermath stirred a complex tapestry of emotions. Relief washed over him first, the fear of ridicule averted, replaced by validation. Yet deeper introspection followed. The rip symbolized the fissures in his life, the pressures of fame that threatened to unravel him. His reliance on prescriptions intensified in the tour's wake, a crutch against the exhaustion. But this triumph reminded him of his innate resilience. Historically, the bicentennial concert at Pontiac stood as a milestone in Elvis's later career, a bridge between the Vegas spectacles of the early 70s and the more introspective tours ahead. It underscored his adaptability, a showman who could improvise triumph from turmoil. Psychologically, it offered insight into his psyche, a man perpetually balancing adoration with alienation. Using humor as a shield against vulnerability, Elvis confided to close associates about the scare, joking, "One more swivel, and I'd have been performing in my birthday suit," but his eyes betrayed a flicker of genuine unease. This event humanized him, reinforcing the bond with fans who saw not just the icon, but the man striving against his frailties in the broader narrative of his life. This moment echoed earlier trials, the 1968 comeback special, where he shed the Hollywood veneer. The 1973 Aloha from Hawaii broadcast, a global affirmation. Yet, as 1976 progressed, signs of wear mounted, canceled shows, health scares. The jumpsuit incident, however, became a touchstone of positivity, replayed in bootleg tapes and fan lore, a story of grace under fire. Elvis, ever the philosopher in private, viewed it as a lesson in impermanence. Life's like that song. It burns, it rips, but you keep singing. It deepened his appreciation for the stage, that sacred space where he could transmute pain into passion. Legacy-wise, the event endures as a parable of showmanship's essence. In an era of polished perfection, Elvis's raw recovery highlighted the power of authenticity. Fans, to this day, recount it as a pivotal memory, evoking the emotional depth of his performances. Psychologically, it reveals a king who, despite inner tempests, chose connection over collapse. As his final years unfolded, marked by triumphs and tragedies, this night at Pontiac gleamed as a beacon of what made him eternal. The ability to turn the tide of fate with charisma and heart. In unveiling this hidden chapter, we glimpse the profound humanity of Elvis Presley, a soul whose music and mishaps continue to inspire. The rip was not an end, but a revelation, ensuring his legend burns eternal.